All right, hey guys, what's going on? My name is Chris Saquez, and this is your best life defined. Hey, let's get right on it. So, honestly, no, that's a perfect start to this. So, back when Sandy and I first, we were married. We'd been married a few years. I think we'd been married about 5 or 6 years, and I had decided, actually, yeah, 6 years because we got married in '81. In about 1986, I was bringing home $320 a week, and Sandy was bringing home about $100 a week, maybe 150. So there we are. We're living in our junky house, our shack, our miner shack that I planned to make our dream home. And for some reason, I got this idea in my head that we needed a new truck. Now, it wasn't because we actually had a truck that didn't run, because I had like a 1976 Toyota pickup two-wheel drive, and it was a military green, almost an olive crappy green, but it worked fine. Well, somebody at work had come home with a brand new truck, and so I got this idea in my head that because I was driving from Colorado or from Canyon City, Colorado to Colorado Springs, and sometimes I drove in the winter, that all of a sudden I needed a four-wheel drive. Now, with about $450 and change every week, we were making about $1,300 a month, which isn't a lot of money. Well, because I got it in my head that this is what I wanted, the next thing I know, we had went out and we bought us a new 1986 Toyota pickup, stripped down version. There was nothing in it. It had vinyl seats, vinyl floor mats. That's what we got. $9,000. And so that was $290 a month financed. Now that's a quarter of our income. And I remember the struggle we had because we were struggling between making our house payment and the car payment and paying bills, and of course you needed beer, right? You got to have some beer. And had I just been honest with myself about the true impact of that purchase, had I just been honest about the direction of our life and where we were going, that never would have happened. We would have never had to endure that struggle. And that brings me kind of to the point of this whole conversation, and that is how many things in our life have we endured simply because we failed to be truly honest with ourselves? I mean, there were times when and even still now, I will get an idea in my head about something I want. I think my push right now is to get a drone so that I can actually do podcasts and videos while we're out and about doing the things we do, because this summer's going to be full of hikes and full of backpacking trips and just all kinds of activities, and it'd be cool if we can share it with you. But I have to be honest with myself about the true impact that drone is going to have. In other words, for $1,200 or $1,500, whatever that drone is going to cost me, am I truly being honest about its usefulness, about applying it to this, about it making my life better? Now, obviously, there are some things in my life that I'm not going to worry about. Some things you just want, okay? But the key is, no matter what you want, the ticket is to not allow that thing to make your life worse. When we bought that Toyota pickup, it definitely made our life worse. I mean, it did. It drained that doesn't seem like a lot of money by now, by today's standards, but it was a buttload of money back then when you consider full coverage insurance. And we were two kids. I was, about 23 at the time, 24, something like that. So, yeah. But when you're being honest, when I talk about the drone, I have to sit back and be honest about how useful it is. And this honesty is important because you're being fed a steady diet of what happiness is, a steady diet of what success is every day. So am I. And if we aren't truly honest with ourselves, how do we avoid those traps? See, for me, I own two homes. I worked and renovated two homes, not just minor renovations, but major renovations, stripped down to the walls, to the studs renovations. And I was like okay with it. I was okay working concrete all day long and then coming home and putting a roof on a house. I was okay working concrete all day long or fighting inmates at a federal prison and then coming home and hanging drywall and painting and caulking. But I wasn't actually being honest about who I was and what I truly loved to do. Was it important that I finish that work anyway? Yeah, it set us up for where we are right now. But the fact is, it sucked. Every bit of it sucked. But had you asked me back then, hey, how's it going? I'd have said, oh shit, man, I'm doing good. I'm renovating my house. We're getting stuff done. And on the inside, if I really were honest with myself, I'd be thinking, this sucks. Rolling out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, pouring, I don't know, I guess there were days when we poured 300 yards of concrete in one day. I come home, I don't even change clothes. Grab a bite to eat, and it's back to work until 10 or 11 at night, and those cycles continued for years. And by not being honest about it, I endured it. And the same was true with that old house when I went to work at the federal prison. I remember telling my wife, I'd say, baby, I'm going to go get some overtime, because back when I started in the early 90s, the Bureau of Prisons had an abundance of money. There was changes in laws. They had fully funded the Bureau of Prisons. They were in an expansion, putting people in prison. I could work as much overtime as I wanted, and there were periods of time when I would work 14 doubles in a row so I could pack our bank account with money so I could use that money to renovate that old house we lived in. And eventually we got it done. And had I just been honest with myself, I'd have said, no, there's a better way. Let's get rid of this crappy house, pack that money away until we have enough to buy us a house that's already fixed up. And that comes into a previous podcast about we don't know what we don't know. We get tunnel vision about the life we live and how it's supposed to be lived without looking outside the box. And the same is true for this thing called the American dream. But it's by being honest with ourselves about how we truly feel about the choices we make that we are able to avoid the pitfalls that trap most of us. I mean, think about it. Had you actually been honest with yourself about that big-ass house and all that debt and all the things you have to do as a result, would you really have chosen that exact life? I mean, you're listening to a guy who lives in a 41-foot fifth wheel and can travel anywhere. And it's putting it in perspective that matters. And the reason that I say putting it in perspective matters is, I've said it before, this fifth wheel isn't my dream home. I'm honest about that. This fifth wheel is the launch pad for my life. And the same is true for relationships. I don't think there's anything more scary than being candid enough with your partner to say you're not happy. Because I remember when I was young, Sandy said she wasn't happy. The first thing I thought was divorce. She has a boyfriend. Oh my God, we're breaking up. And that wasn't exactly the case. She wasn't happy because we weren't communicating. I wasn't happy because we weren't communicating. I wasn't happy because all we did was work. We didn't have any time for anything else. That was the honesty part of it. And had I been honest with myself when we bought our second house, I wouldn't have done nearly as much work on it. I would have contracted it out. And again, I would have went ahead and worked at the prison for overtime and then paid someone else to do it. But I wasn't being honest. And even when up until the point that I met Brene Brown and I kind of started, actually that's not true, up until the point that my dad died, I was never really honest about who I was, who I had become as a person. I was an angry, miserable, selfish person. I was number one, and anger was my tool, and don't cross me. And it didn't make my life any better. You could have asked me back then if I was happy, and I would have said, "Oh yeah, hell yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm fucking happy." No, I wasn't being honest. I was miserable. I was miserable. I had a lot of self-doubt. I had a whole lot of self-esteem issues. Our relationship was struggling. I felt like I was going nowhere in my life. And by facing that, by sitting down one day with Sandy and saying, "Listen, baby, I don't know. I just ain't digging this anymore," I have been able to actually transform my life, and she's done the same, and now we are living a parallel life where we're actually energized about the things we do. Is this life for everyone? Of course it's not. But maybe you don't need that big-ass house. Maybe you just need a house. Maybe you just need some place to go to sleep at night, to get out of the rain. Maybe you just need some place to fix dinner and to get a shower and get ready for your next adventure. Maybe you don't need a $70,000 truck. Maybe a $5,000 used truck will do, because your thing is it gets you to the river and that's what you like to do is fish. You're a fly fisherman, or whatever your adventure is, whatever your thing is in life, but it requires us to be honest. And if your communication with your partner isn't working, if it seems like it's kind of tapering off or it's not headed in the direction you want it to, maybe it's because you're not being honest about how you feel, and you're not sitting down and outlining those things that are important to you. Because I remember I would shut up instead of being honest with my wife when she was being a little catty with me about some comment or something I was trying to do. I would just, I just suck it up. Didn't want to get engaged in that debate. But by being honest and realizing that maybe it was because I didn't have the skills. I wasn't honest about my skills, and most people aren't honest about that. Think about it. You come from being individual as a kid and a young adult where everything is about you. You don't have to consider anyone else, and then you come into a relationship. Where is the education process that teaches you that you don't get to be selfish anymore? Where's that training program where you go from being a single adult or a young adult to a married adult, where instead of choosing everything for yourself and not giving two shits about where you are or being accountable to anybody else, all of a sudden you are accountable because you've made the decision to commit your life to someone else to share that life. By being honest about our inadequacies, guess what? That's the ticket to fixing them. So, when you look around your life, are you honestly living on top of it? Are you sitting at the top of your mountain? Are you climbing that mountain to places no one's ever been before? I don't think so, because for whatever you feel about the life you're living, it is not some tremendously amazing accomplishment. I mean, there are millions of people who live your life. There are millions of people who are in debt for a house, they're in debt for cars, and they wake up every day and they grind it out. There are millions of people who don't have a month of wages in the bank. Can you honestly say your life is friggin' awesome? Now, there might be some things in your life that are awesome. Maybe you do have a partner who's amazing, and maybe you do have a family, and you do have access to things where you can honestly say, yeah, this is the shit. And if you do, then good for you. The question is, so why aren't you being honest about the parts of your life that aren't that way? You get one chance. You get one shot at this shit. I mean, you can do it two ways. You can grind it out and like climbing a greased pole, or you can take a look at the things that are rocking in your life and go, you know what, I think I could use a little more of that. And start focusing on changing the shit that isn't rocking. If it ain't on a scale of 7 to 10 on your value meter, get rid of it. I mean, you got to be honest about that, right? I mean, I don't know anyone who loves pulling weeds. I'm sorry. And I don't know anyone who eats grass. And yet how many millions of people wake up every Saturday morning and they start that lawnmower and they go out there and they walk back and forth to trim up and clean up their little crop that no one eats, so that no one can give a shit about it, except for a few comments. Hey, yard looks good. I don't know. That's a pretty nice fish is a lot better statement for me. Or, man, that was a hell of a climb, but look, we're on the top of our mountain. Now, that's some shit to talk about. If I'm going to get a compliment me for hauling my ass up to the top of the China Wall in Meeker, Colorado. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up the China Wall in Meeker, Colorado, and you'll see it's one hell of a climb. It's an amazing bike ride, beautiful country, but it is hell. And I've done it like 6 times on my mountain bike, but that's some shit to be, yeah. And there ain't no lying about it. It's cool as hell getting to the top. It sucks. It's painful. You want to quit. You ask yourself a million times while you're doing it. But once you get it done, you're like, yeah, I did that. So, no, I don't know. I think honesty is really important, and self-honesty is even more important than anything. And when it comes to your relationships, that's really where it gets tough. It's hard to be honest with a partner who isn't willing to reciprocate. I mean, if you're being honest about how you feel and things you'd like to see happen that are better in your life, and they're not able to appreciate that, then it makes it tough. And sometimes that puts you in a bad position. But even in those situations where it gets real difficult, you have to be honest with yourself, or at least honest enough to say, you know what, I get one chance at this thing called living, and I'm going to do my best to do that. And if it requires me to hit some rocky ground with my partner because they're afraid or they're intimidated, and just remember that any conversation you have that is based in honesty must also be based in kindness. It does no one any good if you engage in a conversation that ends up in hurt feelings and anger. And not so much hurt feelings, because sometimes if your partner isn't ready for your honesty, it will cause an emotional response. But the last thing you want to do is jump in that car with them, because then now you got two upset people, and that's not the goal. It is a conversation just like this. Hey baby, hey baby, I'm thinking this isn't working. I think we need to do something different. Or this ain't working. I think there's something better out there for us. Can we sit down and actually do the pros and cons of the things we've chosen in our life and see if we can't find a better path for ourselves? That's where that honesty starts. And as far as why you protect yourself and why you react the way you do to people around you, again, let's be honest about it. Be honest about who you are and who you've become. Because it's only by being honest that you're going to be able to change it. So, anyway, I think I've got a pretty good handle on it. Life is pretty good for us. We're still struggling right now, waiting for the snow to melt. And Meeker, Colorado, is beautiful. Eventually, you'll be hearing me podcast from Florida, because that's where we're headed this winter, unless something changes with COVID-19. But I'm just trying to help you out. I wake up every day excited about this. Sometimes it's easier than others. Today, this was a tough one for me, to be honest with you. This was kind of tough because it's hard for me to kind of keep that flow going when I think about it, because I have struggled with it. But I just want you to know that, by understanding who you truly are, and by being honest with yourself about who you truly are, you will be able to make choices, and they will make sense to you, even when they don't make sense to anyone else. And when you do that, you will begin to live your best life, and your life will continue to improve as long as you follow that path. So grab a hold of everybody you love, share your ideas with them, tell them what you're doing. Even if they don't agree with it, go forward with it, because by being honest with yourself, you will know you are on the right path. So hope it's helped. I enjoy what I'm doing sometimes. Other times it's tough. Either way, I'm going to keep rolling with it. And I hope you'll keep listening. I hope you'll keep supporting me. Take a look at my YouTube channel just to see my 8 subscribers now. And I would love some feedback. I'd love some ideas on podcasts. I don't think you can stump me. I honestly don't. So I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, just remember, today's your day. Make it a good one.